brought on them now. We begin with Santorum's campaign just 1 week after the Michigan and Arizona primaries. Howard Fineman, the pro, is Huffington Post Media Group editorial director. And Chip Saltzman, a new friend of the show, ran Mike Huckabee's 2008 presidential campaign. Howard, my friend, let's take a look at a national poll. We know these national polls reflect the latest sort of events, but let's take a look. One-on-one matchup between Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney. Latest Gallup USA Today poll. Santorum, 50. Romney, 44. But looking to Tuesday's Arizona primary in the CNN Time Opinion Research poll, Romney, 36. Santorum, 32. Gingrich and Dr. Paul way behind. Well, let me go to those questions. What are we looking at now going into Michigan?
Well, what we're looking at is the possibility of Rick Santorum becoming the confirmed front runner if he wins Michigan. And I think the reason for that is one of Mitt Romney's home states. It's as much a home state as any. It's the place that he says he learned about America, learned about the auto industry, learned the values of his family life.
And the trees being the right height.
And the trees are the right height. And if he loses in that state to Rick Santorum, who was an asterisk a few months ago, beats Mitt Romney, who's been running for president actively for 5 years and deliberately for 20, that's going to make Rick Santorum, in effect, the front runner.
Let me ask you, Chip, it's good to have you on the show. I was reading Gene Robinson's great column this morning. He used a phrase that I hadn't heard in a while, and it's really tough. He said that Mitt Romney is basically having problem beating political has-beens. He refers to your favorite candidate, Santorum, I guess, as a political has-been. I don't think he is anymore. I think he's a comeback guy now. I think Santorum, for whatever reason, has found the sweet spot of the Republican right on social issues and is doing quite well, beating the guy with all the good looks, all the money, the family name, the cars, the 5 homes, and he's ahead of him nationally right now, as Howard said. We just reported. He's ahead of the guy who has everything, including those jeans he's wearing now, rather uncomfortably. What's going on? Has been beating Romney.
Well, I think I agree with you. I don't think he's a has-been. I think he's more of a comeback kid story. I mean, look, he got wiped out in Pennsylvania in the 2006 election, as did a lot of Republicans, but he's always been a fighter for those social issues that are important to a lot of people in our party, and he's always been a very strong spokesman. And like I said along most of this campaign, he's been the happy warrior, and a lot of people are attracted to somebody who knows who he is, what he believes, and not afraid to talk about it.
Well, let's talk about that right-wing sweet spot he keeps hitting. Last night on Fox, Rick Santorum brought up the Reverend Right again. Remember that old tired story when discussing President Obama's faith? Let's listen.
He went to Reverend Wright's church for 20 years. I mean, now you can question what kind of theology Reverend Wright has, but it's a Christian church. He says he's a Christian. He goes to a Christian church now. Look, I'm not going to question what the president believes in when it comes to his faith, but I am going to question what he's doing in this country to drive up the cost of energy, destroy this economy, and so at the behest of a bunch of radical environmentalists.
Okay, there he is. I'm not going to question his religion, which he just did. Yeah. He trashed, basically, went after the religion of Reverend Wright. Right. You know, a street religion, whatever he's trying to imply there. Fine. Okay, he does all that. Then he says, oh, by the way, having not trashed it, which I just did, let's talk about the environment, the stuff he's doing in this country. Well, what did he just get here?
The maneuver that he made around the church issue was positively Nixonian in its sweep.
Yeah.
I'm not questioning.
I'm not one of those that believe the Supreme Court is hopelessly communist.
The interesting thing about this is we have a story up on the Huffington Post right now that digs into his background, going back to when he first ran for Congress in the Pittsburgh area. He did not stress religion then. He did not stress the abortion issue. Now, this may have been privately held beliefs, and I think they probably were, but they're not anything he dared talk about. But over the years, he's taken on the aura not of a campaigner but a crusader. What he's running now is not so much a campaign as a crusade. His people think that by sticking to his guns the way he has on these issues, by making these kinds of statements, he's impressing the Republican base with his sincerity.
But you're not saying he's faking it, are you?
No, I'm not saying he's faking it.
I don't think he's faking it.
He's unpacked what was inside and showing it to everybody.
You said it so well. Unpack what's inside. Chip Saltzman, from the first time I heard about this guy running for Congress against Doug Walgren, using the residence issue against Walgren, saying he was living in Virginia, knocking him off with that charge, which he later got knocked off with, as you know. He was a right-to-lifer to the core. This was a big part of his motive. Your thoughts? Here is a guy who keeps hitting the political sweet spot, the far-right cultural issues, even contraception, issues that go way back to the 50s and 60s. Is it just a coincidence that what he believes deep down, this old church basic philosophy, is now working for him, or is he missing a point? Is he smart to keep hitting these points over and over again? Contraception, questioning sort of women's role in the world today in many ways, being able to work outside the home. Back to these old verities, are they winners or mistakes?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, that's where he's most comfortable. That's where his space is. And look, there's a big part of our primary people that are listening to that and understanding and cheering him on. It's his comfort zone. It's his biscuits and
women
gravy,
should stay home, for example. How's that one? Women shouldn't be going out into the workplace to win the prizes they don't need because basically they're needed at home. That kind of an argument that he's still out there with, is that something that wins or what? Or what? I don't think
that wins long term. It does not win long term. I mean, look, most people in this country are worried about jobs in the economy. We've seen every poll say that. We've got a little bit of good economic news. We've got to build on that. And if Rick Santorum's going to be successful long term, he needs to focus on kind of his blue collar background, not so much on the social issues, but about job creation and manufacturing and things that he knows because he's been talking about it for a lot of years.
How many people that have daughters down in their 20s, Howard, like you and I do, thinking, oh, some guy's going to take care of them someday. They don't have to have a career. They don't have to work.
But Rick Santorum,
I mean, that's kind of ridiculous today.
To be blunt about it, in the Republican primaries and caucuses, Rick Santorum isn't worried about that. Right. He's worried about getting evangelicals and conservative Catholics, male and female.
So he's
worried about blue-collar workers. And I think he figures if he ever gets to the general election, women who would be insulted by that, we're never going to vote for him anyway. I think he's miscalculating, because I think a lot of otherwise conservative women in the Republican Party are not going to go for a guy who questions contraception, who questions the women's role in the workplace. It's just too antique, aggressively retroactive a notion to sell even to moderate Republican women in the general election.
You know the slogan of this network is leaning forward, or lean forward. It seems like his is lean backward. Chip, is that a winner?
Well,
lean backward?
Look, I
think lean forward's been a winner for us, but I think lean backward may not be a winner for him. Just guessing.
Well, I'm certainly on your show, and I think you're a big winner, so I think it works for you.
You'll be
back. Rick Santorum,
you're back a lot now.
Rick Santorum, to be successful long-term, has got to move beyond that. Howard's exactly right. The blue-collar issues that he can really articulate in an interesting way, because he's from a Midwest-type state that's got a lot of those type jobs. He can be successful on those issues. He's got a strong manufacturing plan that I think's excited a lot of the manufacturing base. That's what he needs to hit on in Michigan in this closing week if he's going to be successful.
You know who's afraid of him is Mitt Romney and his new friend, Dr. Ron Paul, his new bromance brother here, because here's Dr. Paul with a new ad out, taking on not the previous frontrunner, taking on the new frontrunner, Rick Santorum, maybe at the behest of his bromance buddy, Mitt Romney. Let's listen to Dr. Paul trashing Rick Santorum.
Is this dude serious? Fiscal conservative? Really? Santorum voted to raise the debt ceiling 5 times, doubled the size of the Department of Education, then supported the biggest entitlement expansion since the 60s. Not groovy. Santorum voted to send billions of our tax dollars to dictators in North Korea and Egypt, and even hooked Planned Parenthood up with a few $million. Rick Santorum, a fiscal conservative? Vague.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
Why is he out attacking his other opponent as not groovy? Is this some deal he's got with Romney to trash the guy who's challenging Romney?
I think Ron Paul's strategic imperative from the very beginning, and maybe it's a wish rather than a plan, is to knock out all the other foes of Mitt Romney and have him be the last man standing. But it's too late for that.
So what's he up to?
What he's up to now is, I don't know, being head of the Fed so he can
That's what I was tingking.
To close it down.
He gets Bernanke's job to close it down, the last head of the Fed.
God knows
Chip,
what
you
Mitt
know
Romney
this right-wing crowd. What is he up to on the libertarian side? It's aimed at young people. All this term like, well, maybe young people from the 60s, groovy and terms like that. And I mean, he said every word but neat. What's going on here with this ad, this hip new ad of his?
I think Dr. Paul's in delegate collection mode, and he's trying to get as many delegates as he can to take to Tampa and see what happens when we get there, and then he wants a prominent spot speaking, and I think if he continues this path, he'll probably get it.
So this is for 20 minutes in prime time. Thank you very much. Boy, is it... God, but for Wales, anybody, thank you, Howard Fineman, and thank you, Chip Saltzman. Coming up, it's the big lie.